I try as much as possible to create what I want to create, not what I think other people want me to create for them to see. Because it's my story, it's myself, it's my inspiration. So I have to put it all out there, regardless of how anybody can interpret it. My name is Hanson Okere. I'm a pyrography artist based in Lagos, Nigeria.
And you wonder what pyrography is? Pyrography is the art of making art. It's the process of making art with fire blade on wood.
I saw the need to be different. Yes, because when I was young, I loved art so much that I told myself that this was what I was just going to do for life. So I took it upon myself to teach myself art, because I didn't grow up in an environment where art was in vogue. Yeah.
And your parents were okay with the fact that you were more inclined in drawing than...
At some point, they had to agree with me, but while I was very young, it was a tug of war.
I was going to say that, because I know that's typical of African parents.
Yeah.
But at what point exactly did you say, this is what I'm going to do, art?
I think when I was in my secondary school, yeah. I think when we were deciding on which parts we should focus on, either art or science, that was when I made my decision.
Okay, so then take us through your journey of your growth as an artist, what you started with up until now. Yeah.
So when I started practicing art, I started from creating art with pencil. I started making pencil drawing, and then I moved on to using charcoal to improve on my drawing, and then I moved on to painting, where I used color. I started painting with watercolor, of which I graduated from watercolor. I moved to oil and acrylic. Yeah. And while I was doing that for a very long time, I wasn't still satisfied with that. So in the process of me practicing and nurturing my art skills, I got an audition into the school, University of Port Harcourt, where I studied my art for 4 years. And I majored as a sculptor.
4 years in University of Port Harcourt?
Yes.
Okay, my school is 5 years.
4 years for mine.
Okay.
Where I majored in sculpture. So
do you
can
do
see.
That, or you abandoned it?
Of course I do that. I'm trying to see how I can incorporate my sculpture into my recent medium. Trying to see how I can blend sculpture and painting together in my work. So you can see the growth from drawing, painting, and then sculpture, and then pyrography. This is a work in progress. It's actually for an upcoming shoot.
Tell me about it.
It's actually a group show where we're coming together to see how we can revive the Port Harcourt art scene. I stumbled upon a friend of mine. His name is Kelvin Ijiko. He introduced me to pyrography. At first, it was very strange when he told me about it.
He does the same thing?
Yeah, he does the same thing. He was like, he was going to go back to his place if I can follow him back to his place. And then he was coming from Benue State.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was coming from Benue State.
And you did?
Of course I did.
Wow.
And I was very
fashion can take
I was very, 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 very young then. Very young. I was either 18 or 19.
And you followed him? Your parents?
My dad kicked against it. My mom also kicked against it.
So how?
But I was able to convince my mom, but I was not able to convince my dad. But I left without his consent.
What?
So the more I burn, the more I get darker intensity, depending on how much I want the tone to be. If I want it to be very dark, I'll just have to keep burning. So I can increase it here, like this.
Yeah.
And also I can decrease it here, like this, depending on how much I want to burn.
How are you careful not to burn outside of the lines you've created?
Because I try as much as possible to control my burning. It's practice.
It's
practice, yeah. Because I'm going to scrape with razor blade. That's where the work begins to come out. That's when I begin to detail.
With razor too?
Yeah, with razor. I begin to create highlights. Because I've not even detailed the work. I'm just trying to draw it out to see what I want.
Did you use razor?
Yeah, those are razor. Everything
because
razor. So you're going to see
this one looks like it's bumped out of.
Exactly. Like, you're going to see that flow here now. Yes, I get.
I can see that happening already.
You can now exactly. So I want this place to be very light. Yeah. I have to scrape it, but I need to scrape it at a certain degree. Now this is where the work comes in.
I see.
So this is where I use the sandpaper. So I kind of use it to just smoothen the edges of where I've scraped out. So that I will just have like a blended tone.
Sound from the peak of the past, sound to musically blast, sound like a musical explosion.
So there's a theme of vintage that is noticeable in your work.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that?
I'm drawn to the themes that explore human connection and resilience. Right from when I was young, I've always had love for vintage stuff. I've always had love for the old things, the oldies. I don't know why, both my music, kind of songs I listen to, kind of things I have. I always have love for vintage stuff. So I try to see how I can incorporate that in my work.
There's an art behind us of Peter Obi and Wole Soyinka. What's the inspiration behind it?
The inspiration behind that work, it's actually a series of work. So it's to create a visual narrative that explores the theme that concerns unity, togetherness, the vintage vibe of the oldies, the 80s and the 70s. Some of my friends were like, do I know that Wole Soyinka doesn't like P2B? Like they does. I said exactly the reason why I brought them together. Now, the inspiration behind this comes from the series I did for my show, The Flames of Nostalgia.
Okay.
So I decided to use Wole and P2B because at some point, Obi was the talk of the moment, and I tried to see how I could use him as a contemporary person, and I'm using Wole as a vintage person, and then the car also being a vintage car, and then Wole is dressed in a very classic and vintage guy, old school young boy style. Just trying to see how I can tell stories with all this.
This is really beautiful. So talking about inspiration, what inspires you generally in your artwork? When you pick up your empty canvas or wood, do we call the wood canvas?
Yeah, you can call it canvas.
Canvas, okay.
Yeah, I think I draw things from human experience that connects us together as individuals, how we could bring our memory to see how they correlate together, regardless of our differences from different background that we have. Do you know that this is a print?
Print?
Yeah.
This is not wood.
Okay. So looking at it, it's like you're seeing the original work.
No,
but if I didn't say it to you, if I don't tell you, you won't even
So where's the original work?
It's at the gallery. I sell my prints also for those people that can't afford to buy the original work. So I sell prints also.
What kind of wood is this?
It's called MDF. There are other types of wood, but this is my choice because this is more malleable, and then it's very durable.
It's more what?
Malleable, like there's a way I can cut it in a certain way, the kind of size I want. It's not going to break because there are other lighter ones. Like I'm experimenting on one of this board currently. Okay. It's very light. It's lighter than this. It's like a paper. I'm actually experimenting. And you can
burn.
Yeah, I can burn with that.
Oh wow.
But I have to stretch that on a wood as if I'm stretching a canvas. Yeah, because of how light it is.
Okay.
So it's an experiment that's going on currently. So I'm just trying to see how, just because I have to reduce the weight of wood. Because whenever I go for shipping, I have problems with payment and all that. And then I don't want it to be that heavy anymore. So I'm just trying to see how I can cut down on that.
Okay. Does heavy mean durability?
Heavy, it doesn't mean anything. It's just because it's wood. Wood is a heavy material. It's just that I'm trying to see how I can make it, less heavy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I get that, but Nigerians will say this one is not heavy, so it's not
exactly
worth the price or something
because it's not worth the price. But you can can carry a canvas work. Canvas is just a material.
Yeah.
You understand? And then it doesn't matter if it's light. What matters is what is on the canvas.
Okay. Well, that was why I asked if heavy means durability. If it's going to like last long. Not talking about that. How do you preserve your work or your art?
Okay, there's a machine I use in spraying. I spray with a fixative. So while I'm done with my work, there's a chemical I pour inside of it here.
Yeah.
And then I use it and I spray the work, and then it becomes permanent. I just don't think I can clean it off anymore. It stays like that forever.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because there was a collector that bought a work from me one time.
Yeah.
And then he was like, you would love to frame it with a glass. And I told him like there was no need for that. And then he was like, it's true, there was no need because it's kind of toned down the beauty of the work.
I see.
When you're looking at it directly like this, there's a way you enjoy it instead of when it's probably inside a glass. You'll be feeling it, but you want to touch, and then you want to feel, and then you want to look at it properly to know if it's actually wood. Even while we were looking at it, I was saying you were still touching to want to know.
So your solo exhibition, Flames of Nostalgia, tell us about it.
Well, Flames of Nostalgia, something that has been on my mind for a very long time. One thing that really inspired me to get on with that theme or with that body of work was the memory of my mom. Yeah. After I lost my mom, I started reflecting back on things, how things used to be. She used to have a lot of vintage pictures of herself. I think that was what really gave me courage to work on that.
Is that your mom behind us?
Yes, that's my mom behind us.
Oh, that's sweet.
I mean, this is a sentimental work.
I can see that.
Very, very, very sentimental. It's a very lovely work. I so much cherished it with all my heart. And at some point, I was even confused about how I could express myself when I started creating the work. There's a modern day architecture.
I saw that,
there's also an old school, vintage, kind of vibe stuff in the work. And then my mom dressed in an elegant manner. I decided to use this composition because my mom is a very social person.
She is?
Yeah.
And then you are kind of antisocial.
I'm not antisocial.
You are what then?
I don't know.
You don't like social media?
It's not like I don't like social media. There's a way I see it.
Okay.
I kind of feel like people are misunderstanding social media for the use that it's supposed to be for.
Okay. So wait, I can tell that you used fire, flames to cast.
Yeah, to
How did you achieve this?
Okay, that was done with the color. I used the color pastel to achieve that because I wanted to bring in life into the work, not just seeing the car flat just in the surface. Because while I was working, I was experimenting a lot of things, and then this was what came out pretty much well.
And it's really cute. Color blends in so well.
Yeah.
What's the name of this space?
Journey to Immortality, where she has transcended to immortality. Because to me, she's not late. She always lives on in my heart. Anthony Joshua, I admire him a lot.
Do you box?
I wish I could, because I love boxing as a sport, not
Of course.
being pugnacious in terms of being violent. The way he nurtures his career is something I admire a lot, and how he has been going on and on for him. I think I created this work in 2020.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, 2020. That was during the pandemic. I just saw the picture of him, and I loved the picture a lot. And then he made a quote under the picture, "Stay hungry."
The details, I'm like looking at the details, it's sweat. And you achieved this with fire.
Yeah, fire and razor blade. And this was one of the biggest work I had done as a then, because I just started creating large works. I think this work got me my first BBC interview.
Let's talk about your participation with Rele Arts Foundation.
Being part of Rele Art Foundation is a blessing for me, for my career, for everything, because I learned a lot. I was open to a lot of ideas. I unlearned a lot of things that I thought I knew. Yeah, and then it pushed me up to the point where I felt like this is the right place for my career to venture into.
At what point did you start monetizing your artwork?
That's a very tricky question. Well, when I began taking my career serious as an artist, before I even got into school, yeah, I was very, very young when I had my first, my huge pay. Okay. I can't specify the
pay from. No, that's fine.
Yeah, from a commission piece.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
And it came through my mom.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it came through my mom.
God.
It came through my mom. And then they wanted to do something for one of their colleagues. And then they talk about, making a portrait for them. And then my mom suggested that, oh, my son is into this. And that was how I got it. And wow, it was...
I'm sure that would be a proud moment.
Of course, it was.
Thank you so much for staying with us up to this point. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Create, for more episodes on fusion. This is giving me Ali goes to school vibe.
Exactly. Like I said, my inspiration comes from the past. And I was trying to talk about preparation. Buckle up, no matter how down you might find yourself. While you're looking at it, it's as if it's not on wood, right?
Like, I'm serious. That's
so
like
I
keep
see
looking.
You keep going to touch and then you want to see. People ask me a lot, how do I really achieve this? Because it's looking like a painting, but it's not really a painting because it's monochromatic. If you watch, I don't add a lot of colors. Just 1 or 2 colors is enough. I've experimented a lot and I found out that if I infuse a lot of color, it takes out the beauty of, the medium pyrography out of it. What's the biggest thing I've achieved so far? I love the fact that I was able to have a solo of my own. I was very scared. Creating a body of work and then showing it all by myself. It was a very, very, very huge achievement for me.
Well done. I hope the world, Nigeria in particular, gets to see the beauty of pyrography.
They will. They have no choice.
They have no choice, right?
They have no choice. Sibet, you want to join me? After the NSAS protest, a lot of things was going on in the country, and I did something of mine that I was really impressed with what I did. There was one other particular work that I loved so much. I sold that work to one collector in the US, and then for almost a year, he was always sending me pictures of how he loved the work so much.
That's sweet.
And I was like, wow, wow. Whenever I feel like I'm not actually feeling my work or during my creative process, I kind of feel like it's not coming from me. I just kind of sit back, take a deep breath, relax, and then reflect on what I'm doing.
Is that not a creative block?
I wouldn't call it a creative. When we say creative block, most persons can say in a month, 2 months, 3 months, they've not worked.
Okay.
But I wouldn't really say it's a creative. I think I would just want to reflect. Most times I do some work for 2 weeks. I work day, night, and then 2 weeks I'm done. It's an excitement for me to do this. It's not just, it's the way I feel each time I'm working. And whenever that happens, I always come up with a very nice piece.
It's been an interesting time with Hanson Okere, a pyrography artist from Lagos, Nigeria, doing incredible things with fire, blade, and wood. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Bye. What's inside here? Is this gas?
Yeah, this gas. It's called needle gas. Just a slight difference from the one they use for AC. This one serves for little tiny burnings.
Okay.
This for medium burning, and then this one for large scale burning, depending on the kind of area I want to cover.